I think sometimes we assume too much that people who have a role, who have a job description, who have a title, that they can perform in that role. I think you always need a lot of help. You always need a lot of inspiration. You always need a lot of mentoring at every level of your career. I would recommend that everybody does it. So even if you have an existing, you're 10 years on the market, sit together in a boardroom or in a workshop and really think through, build from scratch, saying, okay, we're starting over. We're just starting. What are the assumptions that we see in the market? What needs to be true for us to be successful?
Welcome to Road to Revenue Leadership, a show that candidly explores how hard it is to create, build, and scale world-class revenue organizations by leaders that have been there, done that, and have seen the results. My name is Dylan Mendes, founding CEO of USite, and I'm excited that you're tuning in to the podcast. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. Enjoy.
And so maybe we should start with the very beginning, because Jan, we actually don't know each other quite well, and I suppose that some people from the audience, from the listeners, won't know Jan Bultinck as many other people do. And so maybe let's just kickstart the podcast with, who is Jan?
Well, I describe myself typically as a kind of a Labrador. So I'm always like quite a very happy, positive person who likes to play, have fun, but certainly is driven by a mission. So purpose, mission is something that I'm always trying to find in whatever I do, if it's personal life, professional life. Translating that to sales. Has it always been like that? Yeah, it has always been like that. I think. It's only recently that I've been looking back and took the time to understand what actually drives me and makes me happy, and also in professional life, what then actually I can get paid for to do, and so on. So
it also maybe kind of makes sense, because how do you think it would have made sense to make that exercise, that retrospection exercise, earlier in the career, where you don't actually have enough experience, perhaps?
Well, absolutely. So I don't like to think about regrets, but I think one of the regrets, or one of the things I should have done better is first think about it. And actually I did it with my daughter, who is 25 years old. She's called Luna. Also at the start of her professional career, having a lot of passions, having a lot of opportunities that are looking her way and that she wants to grab, and I used that moment as well to bring in my findings, and I used do you know the Ikigai model? Do you know Ikigai, Dylan?
I've heard of it, but I'm not quite aware of it. So feel free to explain.
It's a fantastic model that you can use in life. But also in your professional life. So it's the model where you say, what do I love to do? Where am I good at? What can I get paid for? And what does the world need? And in the intersection of those, you can find your mission, your purpose, your profession, and your passion. And at the heart of it is like what they call in Japanese language Ikigai, which is like French raison d'être, why am I here in this world? And it's a very nice exercise to do, to think of, okay, why do I do what I do, and why do I get out of bed happy and step in my car singing, good driving to work, and love the stuff that I do. And I think a lot of people don't really do that, and I didn't do it either. I accidentally stumbled into finding out, hey, apparently I like to do sales. Apparently I can talk to people and convince people. Apparently I love to do things like net new business, opening up new markets, bringing new products to market. Apparently I'm good to
I feel you though.
People. Yeah.
Especially, it doesn't mean because you are in sales that you like just sales as a general concept. Sales is very you have all those different contexts. Just like you say, you like new business development, stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's maybe good for one person, but maybe not for another person, even though both of you are still in sales. And so I think it's good to do that. I have to be honest, I haven't done the Ikigai exercise myself. How is it spelled, by the way? Just for the people just like me that would like to research it.
Yeah, it's Ikigai, so Ikigai. If you type it in into Google, you can find a model. It's like a
three circles
that are concentric and that overlap each other. But it's if you use the model and just be harsh on yourself as well to make the difference because telling to yourself what you're good at is different than telling to yourself what you would like to be good at, and that's also fine if you say, yeah, I would love to be good at this, but might not be the stuff that you are good at.
You know, what I think is kind of interesting of that model is that maybe it makes more sense for you as someone that have already quite a lot of experience and can also look back at those experiences compared to your daughter Luna. I mean, what questions did you ask her to really look back at her past experience and see what actually would drive her?
Well, I think it's very that's very correct. I think the more you move forward in detecting who you are and doing stuff, the more detail you get into the different stuff. Then the more detailed you can get with examples. Okay, I love to do this. After being on planet Earth for a long time, you kind of know what you love to do. You kind of know where you're good at. But at the early beginning of the career, and it can be things like, I like to work with people. It doesn't need to mean that you maybe later on you see, okay, I can manage people, I can motivate people, I can inspire people. But maybe at the start you say you don't know that yet because you didn't have the experience. But loving to be around people is, for example, first thing that you can say. Okay, I love to be around people. I love to do new things. That's easy. You say, well, I'm scared of doing new things, or I love to do new things. And if you do it a bit more high level, you can kind of get to the same Ikigai target, where you say, okay, roughly saying, maybe a bit more high level, I would feel very comfortable in doing this, getting paid for that, and having more purpose in my life. And then you can match professions and companies. You can be proactive in that, saying, okay, but what type of companies, what type of jobs or opportunities are out there that suit that kind of analysis that I made for myself. And if you see,
I think in some way, your daughter is also lucky to have you. I think it's a good exercise to always do it with a mentor or people a couple of years further away that can also give you direction, because it's one thing to say, yeah, that's what I like, but then it's another to know what could I do that will bring me even more joy and success towards those elements.
Yeah, and I think it's I love that you use the word mentor, because I think it should be the job and it should be the purpose. I would love to have that as a general concept of people who have a lot of experience mentoring other people and looking back and helping people that are much younger, have much less experience, and just being there as a sounding board and helping them make the choice and be challenging them.
Have you had mentors?
I had mentors, yes. Maybe not sometimes always as I'm now mentoring a couple of people as a mentor, a true mentor, but I had in my professional life a couple of people who acted as a mentor, certainly at the beginning of my career, which was very challenging, starting quite rapidly in the people manager's position, where I had the luck of having Julien Arnaud, who was the managing director of Exact Software, who kind of took care of me a bit. and that's really nice, because I think sometimes we assume too much that people who have a role, who have a job description, who have a title, that they can perform in that role. I think you always need a lot of help. You always need a lot of inspiration. You always need a lot of mentoring at every level of your career. At least my opinion.
Let's come back to that. What I will do now is just go quickly over your LinkedIn to give a little bit of context to the listeners so that they know what Jan has done and where he comes from when he's sharing his experience. So you started your career at ING, the bank, for a good 3 years. Then you went to Indoor Sports Center, where you, I guess, did the daily management there for a good 2 years.
Yeah, but it was my passion. I followed my passion in always wanting to be. I was a lot into sports, and I wanted to run my own sports center. And I had the chance to run a very big large sports center, multi-sports center in Antwerp at that time, as a preparation of trying to buy that indoor sports center. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I purposefully kind of stopped there to see will Jan jump in to say something, because I think it's funny to see that that is like a total other story from the rest of your career. So kind of, but all right, you just followed your passion, and
that was passion.
But ultimately, that didn't become your ultimate thing.
No, but because of financial reasons that didn't work out. But it triggered why I'm have almost 25 years of software sales experience, because after that I very purposely said, okay, I want to start in sales. I want to start in a sector that moves, that inspires me. And I looked around and said, okay, I purposely said, okay, I want to start in software, never having worked in software before.
Because then indeed you did 4 to 5 years at Exact. Then you continued at SAP for 3 to 4 years, Deltek for 4 years. Then you had I think then it's also the moment you started doing also external, as an external consultant, or I will call it consultant for now, to come into companies. I see HPE, CTEC, then also director at Deloitte. And then recently you also stopped at Materialise, but worked there for 3 years as the global sales leader. And now you just started at Anrova Solutions, and I'm sure we'll touch on that in a bit. But I want to go back to the Exact experience, where you stayed for 4 to 5 years, because I feel that there is really where it all kind of started, where you started with your first sales experience and also moved up to really being a sales manager, sales leader. So anything to share about the Exact experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in many ways it's a bit of the spark of what drives me of being who I am professionally, at least, and also finding back a melting pot of stuff that I like very much in a work environment. And Exact Software in many ways triggered that. So it's a very entrepreneurial organization. So Dutch HQ, very entrepreneurial, lots of change. Lots of ambition. So ERP, still the same world that I'm living in at this moment. That part first steps into people management with a first quite large team in customer service, then in sales management, but also the way of interacting with people, finding people in your professional environment that are very driven, are very enthusiastic, and where you forge like a team that easily adapts to the challenge. We were at that time in 2001 one of the first companies launching what we could call cloud. It was then called ASP, Application Service Provider Solutions. So a lot of stuff of complexity, team, purpose, people management, challenges. Well, were very thrown in like a melting pot, and where I still love to look back on that part and still see that as very valuable in current challenges as well. Is how can I find the challenge, the complexity, the team, the enthusiasm, the etc. All those elements were still there, and I always go back to trying to find that.
Interesting. Yeah, because before that, with the banking experience, then the indoor sports center. I feel like you were still kind of searching what would work for you and where you would kind of pursue the rest of your career. And so I can imagine that at Exact there at a certain point you had some kind of a click, you know, that you felt that this was the right environment, the right context to really pursue the rest of your career. Can you also still kind of go back to those moments, to those years, and feel back that emotion of, all right, this is really, now I'm going to give it all. I'm going to really go and make it happen.
Yeah, that's true. Mainly that's done also because somebody sees that in you. So I'm maybe a person that suffers quite easily from like imposter syndrome kind of thing. Okay, if there's a challenge, I have a thing like I want to do it, but am I really the person with the capabilities to do it? So there's a bit of ambition balanced off with a bit of self-doubt, which is, I think, healthy. But at that first moment, there was a person who saw, I think you have the possibilities, you have those capabilities, you can do that, and they kickstart you a bit on a track, which gave me momentum and where everything fell into place. So finding the part of doing sales on solutions where you help customers in those early days, 2001, is a bit like the digital revolution, but pre first days of it, and then finding yourself and your purpose of, okay, hey, I'm good in inspiring people, motivating people, managing people, and going towards a certain specific goal. But I'm apparently also good at dealing with complexity and doing that in new markets. So it's something that it clicks. It doesn't click all at once. It takes some patience. It takes some at least some effort, lots of effort. Mm-hmm. But it's true that there it all click together, and you feel, hey, this is where I feel good. I'm good at this. I love doing this, and apparently I get paid. It's like the Ikigai stuff. Without noticing it, you find yourself at the heart of it, and that certainly is something that sometimes you lose track of it, and sometimes in your professional career you kind of drift away from towards, hey, maybe I can get paid more by doing this or that, but then you drift away from what really fuels your passion and your purpose. Mm-hmm. But that's certainly.
Have you had such an experience then?
Yeah, maybe in a way, like my period at HP, for example, was maybe driven a bit more like less. It was more on security, more on getting paid for things, less on my passion and maybe what I could bring to the professional world, and that's why I quickly decided not to pursue that anymore, because then you sit in a moment where you sit into a customer meeting or a sales meeting and you feel like, what I'm doing here, then, and if that repeats, then you need to need to step away. It's maybe something that you see when you look at my CV and people say, you never stayed long at companies, and you never stayed like 10 years or 20 years. I don't see that as I see my career as trying to be impactful as much as I can, and looking back at hopefully, but in almost all cases I can look back at very nice collaborations, and having had a big impact on the company, on the organization, on people. But then finding,
I think that makes sense.
It's I don't look at professional career or work as the stability part is not the defining factor for me, and the fun part is quite a big part for me.
Makes sense. Are you someone that like to get in a context where it's then not all about having things in control, where it's kind of challenging, kind of stressy, but you know that's also where you're gonna grow.
Well, that's exactly the case. So I found myself always into a situation where there was a lot of complexity and what some people would call chaos. Um, there are people that run away from it. I'm drawn to that part, and now when you find yourself always in those moments, that's not by chance. That's because you like it and you love it. And now I'm actually always looking towards those type of opportunities where people say, hey, we have a big challenge. We want to go into a new market. We have 5 companies that we want to merge into one. We want to open a new, launch a new product or whatever. And it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be almost impossible. And that's where I like, hey, it's a bit like the thing. Yeah, I never done this before, but I think I can do it. So it just as like you say, it's a growth factor. It's something else and adding an experience to your record.
Yeah, but I can also definitely see some kind of transition where at first you had a lot of self-doubt and you really need maybe a mentor to say, yes, you can do it, to then having that self-confidence for the new challenge. And I find it's actually quite interesting. Because also maybe when I look then at your LinkedIn, I see SAP, but then actually entering channel sales. When I look at Deltec, I see as the go-to-markets guy for the Belgian, the Benelux market. So always also something totally new. Was that also something important for you, that whenever you accepted a new challenge, it would actually be in a totally other context so that you would learn new stuff over there? Was that on purpose or was that just by accident?
Yeah, it's definitely on purpose. So it's going from one organization to another and having different solutions, different markets, going from a Benelux setup to a European to a global setup, going from business application to 3D printing software to it's certainly something that draws me into because it's new, it's exciting, I learn a lot of stuff. You add experiences to your library.
Where would you say you have learned the most?
Where?
Yeah.
In what organization? I think as a salesperson, considering myself a bit as a sales leader, I think I learned the most at my last experience. I think and Materialise, trying to bring it, because it would be very presumptuous of myself to say that it did actually completely finished. It's always a work in progress, but bringing and helping to bring an organization from being a very reactive kind of outdated sales machine towards a very more competitive, commercial excellent sales organization with different dimensions as well. I think that was the most rewarding moment because it also brings together a lot of stuff from the past into one.
Very interesting. All right, because I had a question prepared linked to your experience at Materialise, and probably then also linked to all the previous past experiences. But so, in your opinion, if you would launch a SaaS business in a mature organization, such as I think was the case with Materialise, what would be like the secret formula? How would you approach it?
Well, I think looking back at what most of the time happens, because that happened a lot of moments in the past. We launched at Deltec as well, SaaS. A lot of organizations don't take time to step back and really understand what they're doing, and if they're stuck if they're bringing a product into the market, having a service, having a delivery of a software, being it perpetual or whatever, you tend to see that a lot of companies go forward with a lot of assumptions which are based upon the past, which are based upon boardroom thinking instead of facts, and then moving forward take all those elements into what they're going to do next. So it's maybe not only due to the fact of launching a new product, but what do you do as an organization is taking a step back and really understand what are we doing here? Are we creating, are we building further upon our go-to-market with all the sales capabilities, etc., that we currently have? Or are we really creating something new where we really need to think about the new assumptions that we need to make, about how we're going to, and what impact they have upon our sales organization, meaning capabilities, skills, people, processes, data. And I think that's one of the things that I learned, because I also was one of the persons saying, let's launch a SaaS solution. And you really skim on the surface and you don't go deep enough into what impacts that can have on your complete revenue machine. And the biggest learning that I have, but I think it's also a learning for any sales organization, is have a thorough analysis on what are you doing. Have a really decent look on your go-to-market. Challenge yourself on the positive, but on the negative side. Meaning sometimes have sessions. Why shouldn't we do this? A kind of approach, so that when you move forward, that you have the right model in place, that you have the mindset in place, the right assumptions in place. Yeah.
I'm not sure in how much you can share, but can you maybe bring an example in to visualize a little bit better what you're saying?
Well, it's for example, when we launched the SaaS solution, which was due to an acquisition, an MES SaaS solution in Materialise, we kind of assumed that it was just an integration of the team and the product into the existing product range, the existing sales organization, existing go-to-market organization, like it was an extension of what was already there. It took us a year to find out that everything was conflicting and it was not moving at the same speed, at the same pace. At the part of the market that we were serving with MES was moving at a completely different pace than the traditional products. The team was working in a different way. So even if you looked at how people needed to be managed, how the go-to-market needed to be defined, how they both influenced each other, how actually we needed to price, we needed to position the product, etc., etc. We found it out only after we only took decisive action after a year, because after 6 months you saw this is not working. It's not working like we assumed it to be, but that was due to the fact that we were not really thinking it through enough, and you really need to pick that up, all the dimensions of a typical go-to-market, and understand how this impacts certainly a current organization. People do it in SaaS startups, so they have like, what's our go-to-market? Which is very relevant, and they think about how will I bring myself from 0 to 1 million, from 1 to 5, from 5 to 10, etc. How do I do this? What are the typical phases that I go through, or that I need to go through? What do I need to do when do I put a revenue leader in, when I do this, etc., etc. But a lot of companies that have maybe a bit more body and launch a new product or do an acquisition don't think about it, and that's I think that's really wrong.
It's a very, very good remark. Maybe to go a little bit deeper on your experience, how did you then get finally to that realization that, well, I get it, you see the numbers, it doesn't go as planned, so you kind of have the alarm of, all right, we got to do something. But then what did you actually do, or how did you approach it? Or in retrospection, how would you approach it now, knowing how it was?
I think it's, like I said, I think it's those exercises, by the way, you need to do, I would recommend to do that everybody does it. So even if you have an existing, you're 10 years on the market, sit together in a boardroom or in a workshop and really think through, build from scratch, saying, okay, we're starting over. We're just starting. What are the assumptions that we see in the market? What needs to be true for us to be successful? And it's sometimes, if you look back on for example, the Materialise element was like, okay, go to market was in this example very traditional on verticals like aerospace, automotive, etc. And you need to challenge yourself if all that stuff of like customer segmentation, like markets, does it really make sense? Does it really make sense with the approach that we have towards our product and how we build up our capabilities and what we see, what we have seen in facts in former sales projects? And in that, for example, say, okay, it doesn't make sense. Automotive vertical, its attributes. What are those people in those sectors actually doing? For example, they're doing design, they're doing serial manufacturing, then doing something. So not anything related to the industry, more, for example, more to a process. Okay, then we need to segment our customer base completely differently. Then we need to, and then you build up from there, because you know how your market is segmented, your customer segmented, and then you can build up from there. Okay, what capabilities do we need to have to answer to the needs of the customers? Then you say, okay,
right,
you need to have people that completely understand the process of serial manufacturing versus other type of typical attributes of manufacturing companies. And if you build from there, with those assumptions, you come onto the moment where you say, okay, what's the price model needs to be, and all those elements fall much better into place. Whereas first you typically maybe say, okay, let's use the typical verticals, typical pricing model, typical sales capabilities, people with typical skill sets, and if that doesn't work, I think what a lot of people do is then try to make it work and try to tweak it. So let's throw in some sales training, let's throw in some digital marketing, let's throw in stuff on top of it, but it will never work because you don't do the work upstream to really think about your strategy.
You have to work on the fundamentals.
Yeah, and that's what you typically see if companies have problems in revenue targets, in go-to-market, in a lot of areas. Also, sometimes some studies show that from all salespeople, I think 51%, it's between 50 and 60% only reach their targets. All those elements should be like warning lights, saying, okay, we're not performing at the level that we should be, and then you should have a look, okay, where is actually are we missing? And take an example. Oh, we're very bad at key account management. Why are you bad at key account management? Because people don't have the skills, but could it be that you didn't define your strategy completely right, so that the people that are talking to your largest customer don't know what they have to say? They cannot talk about a joint journey. They cannot talk about a joint roadmap. And
I
then
love
you
that.
need to upstream and say, okay, but what did we assume to be true? And is this true? No, it's not true. Then you need to. So it's all linked together in a commercial go-to-market.
Yeah, it's about daring to ask yourself and the team, what we're doing actually the right thing? And I think that's also part of having a culture where innovation is put up front, right? Where you always want to be at the forefront of cutting edge practices. Do you maybe also think like that? And also maybe also based on your experience, how do you try to make that happen in your culture at the company?
Well, I think it's due to a couple of things. I think if you, certainly in software, I've witnessed, because I step outside my sector in software towards sometimes helping or advising people in other sectors, you see that the software sector is moving at a very high pace. So it's a very nice environment to be there, because you're at the cutting edge of needing to be accepting change and looking for change. I think the roles of people have changed a lot. If we were sales, if you were sales now, now salespeople need to be like the sales managers of before. They need to have more responsibility, look broader into their organization. A sales manager now needs to be a sales leader. A sales leader now needs to be a CCO. I really see those responsibilities and those roles growing and expanding. So I think you need to accept that. Your role and your impact and the impact that you need to have on the organization has changed dramatically. In your organization, you need to have that common sense of understanding that is like continuous improvement. You need to have that mindset of continuous improvement, continuous change, to continuously improve what you're doing. That means that not only you as a sales leader or a salesperson, but finance, legal, HR, everybody needs to be aligned on the fact that you need to move forward constantly. So you need to have a process. You need to have the teams to be able to do that. And I think it's sometimes very difficult to find that, because you will move into areas where you say, okay, we're doing very nice in sales, but development in software, for example, is not moving at the same pace. How do you move forward in the same pace as an organization? It has no use as a commercial organization or unit to move at the highest pace when the rest of the company is lacking or lagging. So you need to have the responsibility as well as sales leader to reach outside of your department and your responsibility, and take your finance colleagues, your development colleagues, your product marketing colleagues, etc., on the same journey. So I think that has changed a lot over the years.
To go back to the continuous improvement that you mentioned, I 100% agree with what you're saying, but sometimes I feel that it is also about making a step back, because continuous improvement also means that you have to change something maybe completely different. You have to approach something completely differently. And so how do you make sure that everybody in the company or in the teams are also, really living by that rule of sometimes we just need to play the game just differently? And you still have to execute on the side also, right?
Yeah, and that's a really difficult part. And looking back, for example, at Materialise was a very good example. Is you overload the organization at that moment. They're selling, they're going to market, they're having difficulty reaching their targets, and at that moment you say, hey guys, we need to do it differently. Nobody is waiting for that. So it's a lot of change management that you need to organize. You really need to take a lot of time. And if looking back, sometimes it's like I said at the very beginning of the interview, said I'm a Labrador, I want to run fast. You need to really have people in your team that balance you out. And I know that you know, for example, Luc van Heulen very well. You need to have a partner, and Luc and myself, for example, are really good because we balance each other out. And you need to have that. If you all run very fast, you tear up your organization. And so you need to have people that can say, okay, it's very nice, the motivation, inspiration, but how are we going to exactly do it? That's the first thing. And second is if having it very, I would say, bringing everybody on the same at the same pace. So a lot of communication, a lot of presentation of, okay, why are we doing this? What is the impact? What is the impact on our customer? What is the impact on our shareholders? Because it's also important. What is the impact on you as a salesperson? And what I love to do and love to bring in is bringing those incremental kind of changes. I think continuous improvement should not be Big Bang theories. It should not be completely bringing an organization from left to right, but saying, okay, we tweak this and seeking to find first the outputs that have impact, so they can show, okay, we're doing a couple of things, minor tweaks, but it's delivering bigger performance, less effort from your side as a sales, but direct focus, more targeted focus on what you're doing, and continuously find it. And if you bring people on that journey, and I've seen that happening, they come into the mindset and they start, hey, maybe I can also analyze what we're doing. We're doing a meeting, we're doing discovery, doing a demo. Maybe we should tweak it left and right to have a bit more output. And it's very exciting if you see that spreading, that little fire spreading out to a big wildfire, and you have an organization that constantly is thinking and challenging themselves to become better.
Yeah, because for the credits, Materialise on the stock markets, you were leading a 100+ FTE global software sales team. So it's not like a small responsibility to lead a team like that. Did you sometimes also kind of feel, that a pressure coming from that responsibility?
I think if you're in sales, you need to have the pressure. You have everybody in sales. If you have a salesperson or a sales leader, you're owning the most precious gift that exists in the whole company, is the customer or the relationship to the customer. You're bringing revenue, more people, less revenue, people get fired. I think we need to be aware from that responsibility. Having, of course, being privileged to lead a team of also at the end was like 150 people across the globe, and trying to steer towards the rough seas and seeing, okay, how are we going to go to markets, this and that. It's a responsibility, but I saw it more as a privilege, because I never saw it as I'm doing this. Like I told you, we had people like Luc, we had people like Vishal in the States. We had a lot of people in the team that on their side as well, brought a lot of ideas, brought a lot of innovation, brought a lot of inspiration also for me. And sometimes you're also a bit the syndicate of those people, and you're like the person that talks for them, and that really brings their ideas to upper management. I see it more as a challenge and a privilege than being afraid of it. Let's call it like that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Now, for the people that actually might, also have a similar career as you, or at least have also a responsibility similar to what you had at Materialise, can you maybe kind of describe your day? I'm also just myself very curious. What was a day like as a global sales leader of such a large organization?
Well, it's a lot of Teams calls and phone calls because of course, in the morning you wake up very early because you need to talk to people in Asia, and later in the evening you're talking to people in the United States. So you need to understand that your day is taking. So it has quite a high impact. Global roles have quite a high impact on your daily charge, on your energy as well. I think it's just a fact. I think the part becomes interesting when in all the departments of the sales organization, because you're talking about pre-sales people, salespeople, channel reselling, etc. You need to chop it up and make it manageable, and your day-to-day job is very diverse, because one moment you're talking about how will you address partners that are creating and manufacturing machines, 3D printers, and how can we get our software onto that printer at that specific partner. And the next meeting is about direct sales, enterprise sales at a big automotive player. Then you step into a meeting which is talking about the roadmap and how you do the go-to-market of a next solution coming up. So it's your day from Monday to Friday is filled up with a whole lot of elements and challenges that you constantly need to solve. So it sometimes makes your head spin, and being in such a position, it also requires you sometimes take a step back and like I said, go back to the basics and say, okay, what are we doing? What were our assumptions? Are we still on track? In a lot of organizations, sometimes in that position, you're also the person that is still saying, yeah, but that's not what we agreed on. That's not how we said we're going to do it. And in your leadership position, you need to safeguard your mission, the direction that you've taken, because it's very easily it's such large organizations with different dimensions over resellers, type of customers, etc., to stray away from the path, because everybody always sees opportunities.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can even imagine for yourself, when you are involved in all those different parts of the business, how do you keep it for yourself clear what priorities are when everyone is coming to you with questions and what do we need to do next, and you're like, yeah, but guys, I also only have 24 hours in a day, and of course you don't want to work the entire day.
No, it's looking back on first of all, when you join into meetings, you say, why do I need to be in that meeting, and what will my impact need to be, because a lot of people like to meet up because they don't like to have decisions, to take a decision, or they don't feel empowered to, so they bring in other people that can make that decision for them. But yeah, of course, you have your revenue goals, which should be a guiding light. So how are we meeting our revenue goals? But that's very high level. The revenue goals should be translated into where we advanced in which market, with what type of innovation, what are we doing with our traditional products, how do we fight retention or churn, fight churn in our customer base. And you need to chop it up into elements that are KPIs for yourself to make sure that you kind of try to dashboard it, and that you always go back and say, okay, does this impact the direction that we need to take on revenue, logos, whatever you feel is makes sense in your business.
Makes sense. Jan, I feel like we could talk hours. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do that. But I still have a question for you, though. Because, yes, I know Luc van der Luk quite well. And I actually asked him, what question should I ask Jan? And he said, and I don't know where this will going, but I should ask you about the 9-meter jump. So, can you explain?
Yeah, no, it's well, that's the 9-meter jump is something that I learned from my former managing director at Deltek, Henk-Jan Onstwedder, where he used that terminology. And something is, in everything that you do, what could be your 9-meter jump? And so every time that you, for example, talk about, it can be going to a demo with a customer, and I can give you an example. So I can give you an example is saying, I'm just gonna position it. So we were a company of 25 people in Benelux, targeting a 10,000 FTE engineering company, 10 to 15,000 engineering company even, where we were up against SAP and Oracle, and where we said, okay, how are we going to approach it? In every single step that we took, we always said, how could we do a 9-meter jump? For example, they used a certain dashboard to look at their business, and they really loved the dashboard. We rebuilt the dashboard, but actually made it work. So we did a little mini ERP implementation to create that dashboard. When they looked at the dashboard, they said, oh, that's nice, but that's print screen. No, it actually works with your data, with some of your data.
Love it.
Like, oh, amazing. We had to call in people from different countries because they all wanted to decide upon which ERP they should use. We said, okay, let's send to each location across the globe one person of our team to sit into the meeting together with them, because internet connection can fail, translation errors or whatever. And we had somebody hopefully speaking the language of that specific team, of our prospect, in the room. We were the only one doing that, because we always said, what would be now the 9-meter jump, the furthest we could jump doing in this. And if you adopt that kind of a discipline for yourself, say, okay, it would be nice if you do this. No, what would be the 9-meter jump? And if you put yourself into those kind of positions, you really sometimes find yourself being much more competent and much more performant than you ever thought you would be, because you sometimes settle too easily for less, and that's a bit 9-meter jump.
I love this so much. I'm very glad Luke asked me to ask that question, because I 100% feel you. I think that we as human, we like to be lazy in some way, and having that reflex of always asking yourself, what extra jump meters can I do to make anything actually happen? And I think that's actually also part of really having that culture of innovation, being at the forefront of everything. What can we always do to move the needle 1 degree further?
Absolutely.
Jan, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, sharing your stories, being such a great guest on the show. If people would like to find out more about you, about Jan Bultinck, where would you like to send them to?
Well, visit my LinkedIn profile. My contact details are open. My email, my phone number is open. I'm very happy to be invited to a nice coffee discussion, chat, lunch, whatever. I'm really open to be contacted on all topics discussed today.
Love it. Jan, I have one last question for you, and it goes as follow. If Jan Bultinck would be a brand, what would it stand for?
Positivity, I think. I wanted to say love, but maybe
it's a Labrador,
I'm gonna say love. Love and positivity.
Love and positivity. I feel you. No, thank you so much. I will take that as an answer. Jan, again, thank you so much for coming on the show, and wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you, Dylan. Bye-bye.
That's it. We have once again reached the end of an episode. I just really appreciate you all spending the time. If you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Until next week with a fresh new episode.